on once again. That's right, we're doing Galvatron. The mighty Galvatron. Because why not? Galvatron has been one of those things where I just remember from... How should I put this? I remember him from the Energon trilogy. Not the Energon trilogy, the Unicron trilogy. Because he constantly was Megatron, then transformed into Galvatron, then went back into Megatron. It's very confusing. I don't know why they did that so much. Yes, my AC is on in the background. It is getting too hot, and I just can't deal with it turning it off, I'll be honest. But either way, we'll head more into those, and other than me seeing him in the Energon trilogy, the better Megatron, yeah, it's usually what he upgrades into. Like, is there a time where he's upgraded into something that wasn't Galvatron? Because that reminds me, we really should watch Transformers the movie for the Patreon. I want to ask in the comments down below, would any of you like us to do that? We might do the Bay movies, I'm not sure about that. I put that as a definite maybe, because I'm not sure if I want to rewatch those. I watched them as a kid. Except for, like, the last two. I didn't see those as a kid. Anyway. Let's go ready for Galvatron!
This week, another frequently requested character gets the basics treatment. One of the most powerful and dangerous Decepticons around. The ultimate evolution of Megatron. Forged in the fires of Unicron, these are the basics on Galvatron. The character of Galvatron was developed for 1986's The Transformers the movie. His toy transformed into a futuristic...
Fun fact, I think I saw this toy at a store once near me where they were selling me all like old toys that they didn't think were going to be worth any money. I was surprised that they thought this wasn't going to be worth any money. I feel like this has got to be worth something nowadays. But anyway.
Laser cannon and a handheld laser pistol, and was created based on the artwork of the film's character designer Floro Deary, which was the opposite of how Transformers toys were normally created at the time, since the toy itself usually came first. But Deary's design underwent further revisions after the figure went into production, meaning that it wound up looking quite different from how Galvatron would appear in animation.
Yeah, he's less
most
purple.
noticeably by having a predominantly grey color scheme instead of the film's purple.
Yeah.
Early promotional material for the toys and film hid Galvatron's true identity,
Really?
presenting him as merely Megatron's new city commander. It wasn't until audiences saw the movie that they discovered Galvatron was, in fact, Megatron himself. Badly wounded after his final battle with Optimus Prime in the year 2005, the Decepticon leader was set adrift in space by the treacherous Starscream, where he was found by the monster planet Unicron. Requiring a servant...
I do remember I remember seeing this scene just a little bit where someone says, "No one summons Megatron!" And then Unicron just simply says, "Well, it pleases me to be the first." But yeah.
To acquire for him the Autobot matrix of leadership, Unicron reformatted Megatron into Galvatron. But Galvatron refused to be Unicron's slave and tried to use the Matrix against his new master.
Not surprising.
Unable to wield the Matrix's power, Galvatron wound up being defeated by one who could.
Fun fact, Unicron was only a trilogy in the dub. I have heard that, funny enough. But that is interesting to know that only changed over for basically English-speaking audience.
The new Autobot leader, Rodimus Prime, who ended the film by hurling Galvatron into the depths of space. The subsequent third season of the Transformers animated series revealed that Galvatron went on to crash land in a pit of plasma on the planet Thrull, which affected his mind, driving him maniacally insane. It was in this unhinged state that he returned to lead the Decepticons against Rodimus and the Autobots for the remainder of the series. But his instability sometimes made him as much of a threat to his own troops as to their enemies, leading to a showcase episode in which they attempted to commit him to psychiatric care, with predictably disastrous results.
Yeah.
For his debut in the movie, Galvatron's voice was provided by Leonard Nimoy.
Really?
That will rip open Ultra Magnus
Spock.
and every other Autobot until the Matrix has been destroyed.
But for the series, regular Megatron actor Frank Welker took up the role.
Oh.
Crush the Earth and its puny humanity! Crush anyone, anything!
That is a very different voice.
Following the end of the cartoon, Galvatron continued to appear in the Japanese exclusive sequel series, 1987's The Headmasters.
Oh, fun fact, I did put the first episode of me and my friends watching that over on the Patreon. I forgot to a long time ago. We watched a few episodes and we didn't really do anything with the recording. We did some stuff, but we didn't do much. We should really get back to watching that. It sounds familiar. Frank Welker has done some work for Transformers. I just can't remember what exactly characters he played.
In which he attempted his craziest plan yet, fusing his body with the Earth itself in order to transform himself into a Unicron-like being. He was stopped by the Autobot Headmasters, who crushed him under an iceberg. And that was the end for Galvatron, until the 1991 series Return of Convoy, when his remains were recovered by the alien Dark Nova, and he was rebuilt into Megatron once more.
What is this new look?
Galvatron was also a major character in the Marvel comic published in the United Kingdom, which, like the toy, based his appearance on Floro Deary's early design, complete with grey colour scheme.
That's fine.
The comic presented Galvatron as a time traveller who came back from the future era seen in the movie to menace the Transformers of the then-present day of the 1980s. Physically invincible, but with a tenuous grip on sanity thanks to his abuses of time travel, Galvatron spent over 100 issues plotting to ensure his dominance in the future. He repeatedly faced off against Ultra Magnus in some of the most iconic clashes of the series, but the pair never got to have a final battle. Instead, Galvatron met his ultimate end when the time stream caught up to him, and he was torn to shreds by a rift in the fabric of time.
God damn.
Galvatron grew to become a favourite of UK writer Simon Furman, and a year after the character's demise, Furman decided to introduce a new version of him in the pages of the American comic book.
Cool.
This Galvatron, who later came to be known as Galvatron 2, to distinguish him from the character who had appeared in the UK stories, hailed from a post-apocalyptic alternate future where the Decepticons ruled Earth.
Alright then.
He was brought to the present against his will by Unicron to serve as his herald, but just as rebellious and as insane as ever, Galvatron turned on his master and set out to conquer present-day Earth. He was defeated and sent to an icy grave by Fortress Maximus, but he would return in the 2013 sequel comic Regeneration 1, providing Furman the opportunity to write the final Galvatron Ultra Magnus showdown that the UK comic had lacked, even if it wasn't the same Galvatron.
I mean, he still is.
The 21st century would also see Galvatron 2 make some scattered appearances in Japanese media, which presented him as having travelled across time and space into the universe of the original cartoon. The first new character to bear the name Galvatron was the Predacon leader of the 1998 Japanese exclusive series Beast Wars 2nd. However, just like the Beast Wars version of Megatron, he was a distinct character separate from the Generation 1 original who shared his name. And this episode is long enough already, so like Megatron, I'll talk about him in his own
the design
video
though.
someday.
It's kind of silly.
The first series to revisit the original idea of Galvatron as an evolved version of Megatron.
On that note, maybe I should watch a lot more Transformer shows for the Patreon. Just a thought of me thinking by myself, but I question what you guys in the comments would think if we did something like that. Just wanted to know for later. Anyway.
Was 2001's Robots in Disguise, in which an infusion of mysterious energy from an underground pyramid upgraded this series' version of Megatron with vampiric energy-draining powers. Rather than a brand new toy, as in Generation 1, this Galvatron was simply a recolor of Megatron, beginning a practice that would continue for the next several years. All 3 installments of the Unicron trilogy also featured their own recolored Galvatron. In each series, Megatron would become Galvatron, then apparently die at the end of the series, return to life as Megatron at the start of the next series, and then be upgraded into Galvatron again.
Yep.
In 2002's Transformers Armada, a Minicon Power Boost transformed him. In 2004's Transformers Energon, which directly homaged the design of Generation 1 Galvatron, it was immersion in Super Energon. And in 2005's Transformers Cybertron, it was the energy of the Cyber Planet key of Gigantian, the giant planet. Now, where Generation 1 had drawn a pretty clear dividing line between Megatron and Galvatron, these new Galvatrons were just treated as being Megatron with new colors.
Yeah.
There was no accompanying change in form or voice or personality. The next Megatron to undergo the evolution into Galvatron was the live-action movie incarnation of the character, as seen in 2014's Age of Extinction. After his decapitation,
I did see a bit of this, where he goes, I am Galvatron, and they're like, you don't have a spark. I'm like, I'm confused. What does that matter? I saw a bit of this, but I don't know why him having a spark in the movies matters. Is it because he's a clone and he doesn't have a soul? What's going on here?
By Optimus Prime in 2011's Dark of the Moon, Megatron's severed head was acquired by tech company KSI. Unaware that Megatron's brain still functioned, KSI were clueless as he secretly took...
Oh, hey, Momocat, how are you?
Doing good, how are you?
Good. Oh, you sound like you got a better mic.
I plugged in my headset and set it up onto the computer.
Oh. Oh, by the way, I have to ask, did you get a new phone? Did you get your new phone as well?
I'm not spending almost $1,000 on a new phone.
Oh.
Not right now.
You need to get an older one, like an iPhone 8 or something.
Hey, look, those are like, they remade those, so now the old iPhone 8s are discontinued for the new iPhone 8s, or SCs, and those are about $800 right now.
Oh dear God. I keep thinking I need a new phone, but then when you say stuff like that, I'm like, maybe I don't.
And not to mention, the tariffs on iPhones are going to make them go up to...
oh yeah. Oh God. Let's just focus.
$600 more.
I'll just show
So pretty soon we're going to be paying about $2,000 for a brand new iPhone.
I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on funny Transformer stuff. I'll show it here.
Control of their initiative to create man-made Transformers and constructed a new body for himself into which he transferred his consciousness. Reborn as Galvatron with an atypical truck alternate mode and with Frank Welker returning to reprise the role, he was now a soulless revenant without a spark.
You have no soul. That is why I have no fear.
What does that mean?
But when he returned in 2017's The Last Night, just like the Unicron trilogy, he was back to being Megatron again with no explanation.
Don't understand why.
This emergent tendency to treat Galvatron as a sort of temporary powered-up form for Megatron, who inevitably defaults back to his original identity, is likely an outgrowth of Hasbro's steadily increasing efforts to maintain a consistent core cast of recognizable characters across the different Transformers series. Simply put, they don't want to replace Megatron. Witness the Megatron of Transformers Prime, who was evolved into a new, more powerful form by Unicron, but whose name didn't change. The original Galvatron remains a fan-favorite character who's continued to make intermittent appearances in 21st century media. And toys and merchandise of him have continued to be released, including a reissue of his original toy in animation-accurate purple. But there have been noticeably fewer figures made in his image than you might expect for a character of his historical significance.
Damn.
Recent years have seen Hasbro introduce Galvatronus, a combiner who looks like Galvatron, but isn't, in both the Combiner Wars and Robots in Disguise toy lines. Though for his
I have actually never watched Prime, so that's another thing on my watch list. I have so many things I need to watch. Oh dear.
release in Japan, Combiner Wars Galvatronus was recolored in original toy grey to become a new version of Galvatron 2.
Well,
Simon Furman found a simple solution to the problem of Galvatron when he introduced the character into IDW Publishing's Transformers comic book universe in 2007. In order to include one of his favorite characters without having to take Megatron off the table or rely on complicated concepts like time travel, he simply reinvented Galvatron as a totally separate character, entirely unconnected to Megatron or Unicron. A recurring antagonist for over a decade of IDW's comics, this Galvatron was a puritanical barbarian from Cybertron's prehistory, the twin brother of RC and a former servant of the original 13 Primes. Galvatron left Cybertron as part of a crew led by Nova Prime in search of new worlds to conquer, who disappeared into the undead alternate dimension known as the Dead Universe. Coveting this realm's dark power, Galvatron turned on Nova and took the power for his own. But in doing so, fell under the influence of the Dead Universe itself and was almost duped into destroying Cybertron until he was stopped by the Autobots. Free of the Dead Universe, Galvatron later took command of the leaderless Decepticons and launched a new campaign to conquer Earth, but he was ultimately defeated and executed by a regretful Optimus Prime. The idea of Galvatron as a separate individual from Megatron was also used in the Aligned continuity. The 2013 guidebook, The Covenant of Primus, mentioned Galvatron as the leader of a cult of chaos on ancient Cybertron. And there's every chance that this approach might continue. Today, in 2019, Megatron is one of the most recognizable, marketable...
basically, they either transform Megatron into Galvatron or they make him a different character. Usually now.
I like the idea of it being separate entities.
Maybe. If they don't want to use time travel, then they can't exactly have them both at the same time.
Faces of the Transformers franchise, so it doesn't seem very likely that Hasbro will ever again risk phasing him out by transforming him into Galvatron in anything more than a very temporary capacity.
Damn.
Only the future will tell. But what do you think about this situation, Galvatron?
Well, all I can say is...
And those are the basics on Galvatron.
What do you guys think of Galvatron? Do you want him to stay a separate character? Do you want him to continue to be Megatron? What do you guys think? I'm actually curious.
A separate character.
I know, you made that clear for you.
Well, it's because Galvatron's a unique design in his own right.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun if they brought back whatever cult he had as a separate third faction.
It's possible. We've had separate third factions in Transformers before.
I know.
Anyway.
It wouldn't be too hard to add another one.
It depends on the series. Yeah, it honestly depends on where you would fit in the different series. Anyway, thank you all so much, and we'll see you later.